ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om, salutations to all. So we are seeing in the Kathopanishad, the mantra 14, chapter 2, Valli 2, mantra 14. Tadetad iti manyante anirdesyam paramam sukham. Katham nu tad vijaniyam kimu bhati vibhati va. So the question was, Katham nu tad vijaniyam? How to know this Supreme Self? Bhati vibhati va. Does it shine by itself? Bhati. And can it shine the rest? Vibhati. So how do I know this self? Because it doesn't become an object. Tadetaditi manyate anirdeshyam. It doesn't become an object. So whatever we know is in terms of an object which has some name, form, qualities. So the question here, like we saw last time, Yamaraj himself as though is raising a rhetorical question, or one may say it is Nachiketa who is asking that how does the self become known? Because everything else is known to us through body, mind, intellect, and this is that which is to be known beyond body, mind, intellect. So Nama, Rupa, so the name, form, Guna, qualities, Kriya, action, Sambandh, relationship, these are not applicable to the self, they are applicable to objects. So, how to know the self which is not an object, where the body, mind, intellect will not function? So that's a question that arises either in the mind of the student or the teacher is raising as a question to make the student think. So we saw the commentary of that. Now the connection of that, Shankaracharya ji says, Atra uttaram idam bhati cha vibhati cha iti katham. The answer given now in the next mantra is that it shines, and it shines specifically, specially, and it illumines the rest also, bhati and vibhati. How? So that's the famous mantra 15. Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kuto yam agnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvamidam vibhati. So simple meaning of this shloka is, mantra is, na tatra suryo bhati. The sun does not shine there. Na Chandra, nor the moon, meaning the sun cannot illumine that, the moon cannot illumine. Tarakam, the stars cannot illumine. Na ema vidyuto bhanti, nor any other sources of light in the world like electricity, etc. Or earlier times it was also thunder. So he said none of these. Surya, Chandra, Tarakam, Vidyuto, Bhanti. Then how can this fire, meaning the Agni that we use in the Arati, if the sun, the moon, the stars, the lightning, they cannot illumine the self, how can this small fire which I am lighting in the Arati, how will that illumine? Kutoyam Agni. Tameva Bhantam Anubhati Sarvam. It is by your illumination all these get illumined. And Tasya Bhasa Sarvam Idam Vibhati. And it is by your illumination that rest also gets illumined. Now this is a simple meaning of the mantra. In this mantra, one word is to be one word one should be careful about, and that is the third line, first word, tam eva bhantam. So many people chant it as tvameva bhantam. It is not tvameva. Tvam and tam are two different words. Tvam means you. Tam is the second person of he. Not second person, what is that called? Ditiya vibhakti, object. Tvam is a pronoun, meaning you. This is not a pronoun. So what we say saha, he, in the second vibhakti becomes saha, becomes tam. So it should be chanted as tam, meaning him, not you. Meaning will change. So tameva bhantam. So now what does this mean? Let us see what Shankaracharya ji says. Na tatra tasmin swatma bhute brahmani. Tatra means not a place. That's what Shankaracharya is explaining here. Because yatra means where. Tatra means there. So na tatra, there means which place. So he says tasmin swatma bhute brahmani. In the Atma which is of the nature of Brahman, or Brahman which is Atma, either of these. Na tatra tasmin swatma bhute brahmani sarva avabhasa kopi. That which illumines all, that supreme Atma, that Brahman. Surya bhati. The sun cannot illumine that. Tad Brahma na prakashayati iti arthaha. That Brahman it cannot illumine. Tatha na chandra tarakam na ima vidyuto bhanti. Kuto ayam asmad drishti gocharaha agnihi. So the moon cannot illumine, the stars cannot illumine, the lightning cannot illumine. Then how can this small fire which is perceptible to my senses illumine that? Meaning that Brahman which is all pervasive, which illumines everything, that Brahman is not perceptible to the senses. It is imperceptible. How can that imperceptible absolute become perceptible by this small fire which is manifest here? Now one may say, why this discussion is going on? Because so many of us want to perceive the self through the senses. Are there not people who go on saying that, can you show me God? Who has seen God? Because perceptibility is the criteria for a lot of people to think of something as real. But that cannot be the only criteria. In fact, in Vedanta, that is not the criteria at all to know the self. Because it goes on changing. What is seen also is not real. Because it is seen by the limitations of the senses. So beyond a certain range, I cannot see. Though the eyes have very high capabilities, it has some 576 megapixel capability. What we are seeing in the cameras today is how much? 12 megapixel, 20 megapixel. 576 megapixel capability our eyes have. Still, what the eyes can see is limited. Same way, the sound, what we can hear. What is the sound range? Some 20,000 hertz. Beyond that, we can't hear. Bats can hear ultrasound. So our senses have capability, and if we trust our senses, this self cannot be known. So for a lot of people, perceptibility is the criteria, because that's the only way one has learned. If I see something, it is real. If I can feel something, it is real. If I can think about it and achieve, it is real. But if none of these are possible, then that thing does not exist. So one is to explain that part. Here is the subject, here is the self, which cannot be objectified. Everything else we may objectify. The mind will keep itself separate and know the other things as objects, because they are objects. Mind is the subject, they are the objects. So as a finite entity, the mind is able to know. So through the senses, it knows the world outside. Through emotions, it can feel. And through the intellect, it can think. And it is able to understand. Because of these three, it is able to understand certain things, perceive certain things. So objective things like, the things around, the people around, the subjects like whatever, physics, chemistry, biology, maths, economics, so many things that we read, any books we read, newspaper we read, knowledge we get, all that is the mind remaining separate, comes to know something other than it. Here we are trying to know what is that which makes the mind do that. So mind is not capable of knowing this. Forget the senses, the mind and intellect only cannot know. And hence the need in the student's mind is, how will I know this self? If I transcend body, mind, intellect, the usual modes of perception are gone. Now how will I know the self? Hence here the mantra says ki these cannot illumine. But why it is emphasizing that, though it was said anirdeshyam in earlier mantra, in this mantra it is elaborated. That what is the meaning of that anirdeshya? It cannot be pointed out by the sun, the moon, the stars. Now that is elaboration in this mantra. To emphasize that we should not seek in the usual way of how we experience the world of objects, emotions, and thoughts. So the only way is to turn the attention within. If I turn the attention within, then my usual modes of perception are not there. So how will I know the self? So that's the question. In fact, if you remember, this is the question that Nachiketa had asked Lord Yama as the third boon. When he said, Asti iti eke na ayam asti iti cha eke. Some say there is existence, some say it is non-existence. What is the state when I transcend the BMI? Is it existence or is it non-existence? That's what he wanted to know. Earlier also the answer has been given. As we see this Valli, some of the mantras, they may be like they may be reasserting certain things told earlier. But this is the question that Nachiketa had asked. So if from this Valli, if you want to choose which is the answer, this mantra is the direct answer to the third boon that Nachiketa asked. So now neither the sun, the moon, the stars, the lightning, then how can this fire? Kim bahuna yadidam adikam sarvam bhati tat tameva parameshwaram bhantam Deepyamanam Anubhati Anudipyate. Kim Bahuna, what more can we say? Shankaracharya ji says. Yad idam adikam sarvam. Idam adikam means this world. This world we know as idam. Idam means this. Aham means I. Can I experience this in the absence of I? That's a simple question Shankaracharya is asking. That whatever I experience as this can be experienced only because of I. If this I is asleep, this cannot be experienced. So who depends on whom? The experience of I comes first. Then I experience this. But in the world, we think the opposite. World exists on its own and I am born inside this world. Why? Because my sense of I is this body. But every single day when we go to sleep and when we wake up, what happens? It is asserting the fact that I exist first, then the world is born in my consciousness, in my recognition. Otherwise, it is not there. In deep sleep, where is this world? It is not there. So that's why it says, Kim Bahuna Yad Idam Adikam Sarvam. All this, the world, what we say as Idam, this world, Bhati, it appears when? Tat Tameva Parameshwaram Bhantam. Only when you, the Parameshwara, illumine, then the world is perceived. What is the meaning of that? See, these lines are simple lines, but they convey entire Vedanta. This small I, which wakes up first, is that Parameshwara only. Atma is that Brahman, is indicated in this line also. That this small I is that only when this rises, everything else is known. How will this be known without I? It is not possible. And hence he says, Tameva Parameshwaram Bhantam Deepyamanam. When you illumine this I, then the world gets illuminated. The battery, the torch is empowered by the battery. Now, if the bulb wants to see the battery, then how the bulb can see the battery if the bulb is removed, disconnected from the torch? Why? Because now the bulb wants to turn and see the battery in its light. How? The bulb gets light because of the battery. By itself, the bulb cannot see the battery in its own light. Something similar. That's the example here. Our body, mind, senses, they don't function on their own. They function by the illumination of the self. Now, if this body, mind, intellect want to know that self, they don't have any light of their own to know that self. They are inert because the body, mind, intellect is made up of 5 elements. Tattva Bodh we have studied. 5 elements are inert: space, air, fire, water, earth. Mind is made up of 5 elements. Body is also made up of 5 elements. By itself, it is Jada Vastu. How will they know the self? Hence he says, Tameva Bhantam. Only when you, the self, the Atma, shines, rest is known. What does that mean? First, the feeling of I am arises. Then we identify with the body, mind, and intellect. And because of force of habit, it is happening now for such a long time that I don't see the difference between I am BMI and I am. The gap is not visible to me. What Vedanta is trying to do is trying to tell us, create this clarity that I am. That is our indestructible, immortal, unchanging, unborn nature. And this BMI by itself is anyway inert. When these two come together, then this BMI appears to be shining. Like the bulb has no light of its own. Electricity has to empower it. So in the same way it is that this mind of ours, body, intellect, by itself doesn't have anything. Self has to enliven. So what I am trying to do in meditation, withdraw from all other descriptions, remain with aham, pure I. Neti neti means not this, not this, not this. So when we reject, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, then who am I? I am, bas. So they will lead to the same self. Either I say I am and don't encourage any other thought in contemplation, or I reject who I am not. And what is the truth will assert by itself. Like the clouds move away, the sun shines. So one needs conviction for that. I am, and then the experience of the world is there, not the other way. So that's why he says this, Deepyamanam anubhati anudipyate. Yatha jalol mukadi agni samyogad agnim dahantam anu dahati na swatad na swatah tadvat tasya eva bhasa diptya sarvamidam suryadi vibhati. So now here he says that water, see hot water and wood, jala and ulmuka. So water and wood. So water by itself doesn't have heat. So hot water, when we heat the water, then the heat is transferred to the water. Water by itself doesn't have its own heat. Same way the wood doesn't have heat of its own. It has to be ignited. So from where did that heat come? You may say, no, in the wood it is there in unmanifest form. It is there in unmanifest form because it is combustible. But externally that heat has to be created through some friction or through some other source of light. It has to fire, it has to come and then it has to be ignited. Both of them by themselves are not hot. That's the point. They become hot by the power of fire. So he says that yatha jala ulmuka adi agni sanyogad. It is because of contact with fire. Agnim dahanta manu. Once the fire is burning, after that they become hot and they give light. So water becomes hot, fire, the wood will give light. So the heat of the water and the light of the firewood, both these don't belong to water or firewood. If somebody thinks they belong to water and firewood by themselves, that is delusion. See how simple it is to know that part. To understand that water by itself is not hot. Wood by itself cannot give light. Only because of fire this is happening. Now that, of course, is a limitation of example there because fire is perceptible and so is water. So the source of heat and light is perceptible and the water and firewood, they are also perceptible. So that's a limitation of example. Here the source of light is imperceptible. And because it is imperceptible, one is thinking that this body, mind, intellect is functioning on its own. You know, it is like this electricity. So this electricity is not perceptible. But the effect of electricity is perceptible. That we see light, or we see heater, hot water, or we hear sound. And somebody thinks that they are giving light or music or heat by themselves, then that is ignorance. How to know that electricity then? And I'll share with you one video of Gurudev. Very nice video, where he explains this beautifully.
And this in itself is anashi, cannot be destroyed. Nasha is not possible. Is ever the same. Aprameyasya, and you cannot even know what it is. Incomprehensible, because you can comprehend only with the mind and intellect. Mind and intellect can comprehend only things of the OAT, the objects. This is the very subject that gives the mind and intellect their abilities to function. How will you know it? It is a subject. Objects can be known through the mind and intellect and the body. But how will we know that which is enlivening the BMI? And you have to go beyond the BMI. Beyond the BMI, Swamiji, everybody tells me I can't understand. An illiterate Brahmin from the higher climbs of the Himalayas visited me. And as we were talking, it is getting late in the evening, and therefore I went and put a switch on the light. The Pandit's mouth opened. Ah! Swamiji, are you a magician? Why? You went and tickled the wall, and the light came. No wick, no oil, no matches are necessary. Huh? How did the light come from? Oh, Panditji, don't worry, it is bijli, it is light, it is electricity. But though he is illiterate, common sense, he is very bright, he is thinking about it. And we continue talking. It became stuffy, and therefore I went and again switched it on. And the fan started whirling. Panditji got, there is a ghost in this house. And this Swamiji is a magician. He started looking at the fan. He said, Panditji, that is electricity. Are you pulling my leg? You said that the light is electricity, and now you say that the fan is moving is electricity. Then the news time came, so I switched on the radio. The box talking? Electricity. He can't understand. The fellow is after me for the last 3 days. Swamiji, what is electricity? Electricity is the power that expresses as light in the bulb. Power? Kaisa power? What kind of power? Where is the power? How is the power? When is the power? Where did it come from? Where did it go? We Pandit has lost, my peace of mind is lost because the Pandit's anxiety to know. Ultimately, in utter despair, I said, Panditji, this electricity, bijli, is behind the bulb. It is not in the bulb, but it is out of the bulb. It is other than the bulb. He started smiling at me. Swamiji, I am not such a fool. You can't pull my leg. Just because I'm not educated, you are thinking, behind the bulb, what is there? It is not the bulb. Is it the bulb that is burning? No, the bulb is not burning. Bulb is by itself has no light at all. It is only when electricity passes through electricity. What is electricity? Behind what? Panditji will not leave me. So for my peace of mind, I said, Panditji, do you really want to know what is electricity? Yes. Pull the chair, get on the chair, remove the bulb. He removed the bulb. And he looked very carefully. That is why I said, you have been pulling my leg all the time. Swamiji, after wearing this sacred cloth, never tell lies like that. Our Shastra, you understand? So I say that, look, that is where electricity is. And he looks at it left and right, from the right side, left side, from bottom, from up. He says, no, there is nothing there. You are right. There is nothing there. And that nothing is the highest electricity. What is electricity? If you want to know electricity, yes, you have to do electricity yoga. Yuju, yoga meaning yuju, to join, to contact. There is electricity, but if you want to experience it, you will have to contact it. Well, how do you do electricity yoga? I will do it. He is anxious to know. So then I have to tell him that, please fold all your fingers except the index finger. Now insert the index finger where the bulb was. Isn't it? What else is there? The Panditji in his anxiety said, okay, then will I know electricity? You will know electricity. Swamiji, just now tell me one more doubt. Yes. How long should I keep it there? It is your choice. Panditji, you may keep it there till evening, it doesn't matter. But 1/500th of a second is sufficient. Panditji puts the hand inside. Next moment he shot out and jumped about and running around the room. Ha, 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 ha. And now his face is red. There is perspiration on his forehead. Definitely I know that he had a personal experience. My knowledge of electricity is only from books. I had never direct experience. Here is a man who has experienced it. So I surrendered to him and said, Panditji, please tell me what is electricity. Isn't it? Now how can the Pandit explain to me electricity? He is trying his level best. Any amount of his explanation, I will say that is all bluff. Panditji, you are now bluffing me? You see, it came through me. It is doom, it came to me. It was shocking. It was terrible. It is a... He pants to express it. Whatever he may explain, I will never get an experience of what electricity is, isn't it? At the end of it, the Panditji looks into my eyes. Swamiji, are you sure that you want to know it? So by that time my inquisitiveness have increased. I don't want anything in the world except the knowledge that he has got it. And I want to share that knowledge. Swamiji, if you want to know it, you also do electricity yoga. There is no other way. It is subjectively to be known. It cannot be shared with anybody. So encouraged by his look, excited by my own intellectual need and demand to know it, I also get on the chair, put on my finger as before, and I also jump out. I also run round the room. From that, Panditji understood, oh, now Swamiji also has got a personal experience. And then when we are quietened, he looks into my eyes and asks, got it? And I say, No, in utter silence, we communicate each other. I cannot explain to him, he cannot explain to me, but both of us had the experience in the same way. The sense organs, the mind and intellect are our equipments of experience. All of them are inert matter. They are at this moment dynamic. That which lends it dynamism is the life, the consciousness, the divine. Bulb by itself has no light. When it is enlivened by electricity, there is light. You are an intelligent entity, efficient and competent to face the world in science or art or literature, whatever it is, all because you are alive. The saint and the sinner can live his life only when he is alive. Dead sinner is as useless as a dead saint. Think. This is living essence. So that Avinashi, permanent, eternal, immutable God, the reality that elements matter, is to be understood as something other than matter. When you say other than matter, it doesn't mean that we must go beyond the Einsteinian world of time. Once you are beyond the BMI, you are beyond the time. And that timeless, therefore permanent, changeless, immutable, eternal. These are the words used for God in every scripture by all the prophets. That changeless, immutable, eternal reality, Avinashito Andavante made, that is Anashinaha. No nasha, no destruction can take place to it because it is not within the realm of time. Aprameya, you cannot know him with your equipment. The electric bulb, however powerful, cannot illumine the electricity behind it. Think. The intellect has got intelligence only when consciousness is in it. You are alive. With that intelligence you can know everything that is happening in the OET, in the world outside. But the intellect itself cannot know that great truth. Aprameyasya, there is no prameya, no knowledge possible of this with our present equipment.
Such a nice video, just to give that example so beautifully Gurudev gave about electricity and how the bulb is illumined by the electricity, and one has to go beyond. Same way the BMI is like the bulb. One has to go beyond the BMI to realize that. As the subject, one will know it. One doesn't need BMI to know. BMI is able to know because of this Atma. So that the method of sadhana is not to know the self as an object, because that's how we know everything. Here it is to know that as the self, as the subject, which makes the BMI function. See, even in the world, when we say subject object, we mean the ego, the Mr. So and so, and then the object. But here when we say the ultimate subject, which quantum physics calls as the ultimate observer. The ultimate observer in us is the Sakshi, is the Satchidananda, is the Atma, which observes even the Jiva Bhav, Mr. So and so acting. And Mr. So and so is the observer who is observing the world. So the world of observed, experienced by the observer, this observer is witnessed by the ultimate observer. That is the self. That is consciousness. So we have to know it as that which is beyond subject and object in that context. That it is the illuminer of both subject as well as the object. And hence the example which was given was of the wood which gives heat and the water. Sorry, wood which gives light and heat, and water which gives just the heat. By themselves don't have their warmth, or themselves they don't have their own light, but it is the fire. So in the same way, yata evam tadeva brahma bhati cha vibhati cha. Since this is so, that is how Brahman is that which illumines, and because of it everything else around also is illumined. So it is self-illumining as well as it illumines everything around. So bhati and vibhati means that. In fact, that is the definition of consciousness. What is consciousness? That which it knows itself and which illumines everything around it is called consciousness. Without any other medium. That's the important word. Swayam bhati anyan bhasayati sadhanam vina. In Drisha Vivek, this definition comes. Swayam bhati anyan bhasayati sadhanam vina. The eyes are able to illumine the others because of the light of consciousness. Otherwise, I cannot see. Because of the mind. Otherwise, the eye can't see. So, the equipment can illumine others by the help of some other power. And they themselves don't know themselves because they are inert matter. Consciousness is self-illumining. And consciousness is that which illumines the others. That's why bhati and vibhati. Hence he says here, yata evam tadeva brahma bhati cha vibhati cha. Karya gatena vividhena bhasa tasya brahmanoho bharupatvam svato avagamyate. So he says that this external world of objects of different forms, karyagatena vividhena bhasa, karyagatena vividhena bhasa, tasya brahmanoho bharupatvam svato avagamyate. All the different objects in the world, different equipment that we have in the world are illumined by this self, by his Brahman, which by itself is self-illumining, which doesn't depend on anything. The equipments depend on it, it doesn't depend on anything. How is it known? Because when the equipment also becomes unmanifest, still this remains. That is how it is known. The body, mind, intellect become unmanifest in deep sleep, still the aham remains. That aham doesn't go, it doesn't disappear. But the body, mind, intellect becomes unmanifest. So the self-illumining nature of Brahman is revealed through this. Nahi swataho avidyamanam bhasamanasya kartum shakyam. That which does not have light of its own cannot illumine the others. Like the BMI does not have light of its own. How will it illumine? The bulb does not have light of its own. How can it spread any light around? The light in the bulb is coming from electricity. Same way the Atma is here which enlivens this BMI. Then this BMI can become capable of knowing anything around. And so, because the BMI is capable of knowing anything around, itself proves that it is doing it because of some other light, not its own light. Ghatadinam anya avabhasakatvad, Ghatadinam anya avabhasakatva adarshanaad bhasa darshanaad bhasana rupanam adityadinam tad darshanat. Like the example given here is like the pot. What is the difference between pot and the sun? Pot cannot illumine anything around because it does not have its own light. But the sun will illumine everything around because it has its own light. Now, please remember here the sun and pot example is being used just to show the difference between what is incapable of illumining and what is capable of illumining. Don't confuse this one with the main meaning that, but you said sun cannot illumine that. Yes, sun cannot illumine that. Here we are saying sun illumines the other things around because sun has luminosity. Pot does not have luminosity. So if I put a pot in a room, nothing will be visible because of the pot. But if sunlight comes into the room, everything will become visible. Why? Because the sunlight has its own luminosity. So this is what Shankaracharya ji concludes here, the Bhashya he concludes here with this example. Now this mantra has certain significances, some more significances. What is that? The first one here is, see, the sun has its own light, what Shankaracharya ji just said. But the moon has borrowed light. Moon shines because of the light of the sun. Same way the other stars. So the sun illumines the moon, then the moon has its capability and we see the moon shining, we see the white light around the moon, and in the moonlight one feels cool. But it doesn't belong to the moon. It comes from the sun. In the same way, our equipment doesn't have its own light. It is reflected light of the Supreme. And it is because of that light the rest of the things are getting illuminated. So this is one meaning to understand, that in this context of sun, moon, stars, lightning, the source of light is the sun by itself. The rest of them are all borrowed light. So in that context, the Atma is the sun. Rest, body, mind, intellect, etc. is illumined because of the Atma. So this is one meaning to understand. Second meaning to understand here also is that this sun, moon, stars, thunder, lightning, what do these four represent? Subjectively speaking, now forget the analogy part given earlier about its own light and borrowed light. Now we are talking subjectively. So sun symbolizes the intellect. Moon symbolizes the mind. Stars symbolize the senses. The lightning symbolizes sense objects, because there's only flash of temporary pleasure in that. When we say neither the sun, the moon, the stars or the lightning cannot illumine, then what about fire? This fire is symbolic of speech. Meaning the intellect, the mind, the senses of knowledge, the sense objects and the speech. None of this can illumine the self. What does that mean? Self does not become a concept of the intellect. It is concept-free awareness. So no concepts apply. All concepts have to be destroyed, transcended rather. Even the word Satchidananda is not adequate to describe what the self is. It's only a pointer. In the state of contemplation, that also has to go finally. So when we say that the moon, when we say sun, moon, stars, thunder, and the sense objects don't, the lightning and the fire, they don't illumine the world, it subjectively means the intellectually one cannot make a concept out of the self. That is the sun. Moon, it is not an emotional experience. We experience emotional high and low. Including in meditation, sometimes the mind is extremely peaceful, beautiful state, and sometimes it is disturbed. Both these are only states of mind, not the self. But of course, the mind which is quiet, it is easier to transcend that mind and realize the self. So sadhana should be done to quieten the mind, there is no doubt in that. But the point to understand is, by itself, Self is not an experience, emotional experience that suddenly one will get and then it goes away. No. It is not an intellectual concept. It is not an emotional experience. It is not something that is perceptible through the senses. It is not an object to be seen, heard, tasted, smelled, touched. It may appear as all this. The whole universe is an appearance of the self. But we are not seeing it as the self. We are seeing it as names and forms only. If I see it as the self, then I will see that it is not an object. It is all pervasive. It is one omnipresent reality which has no boundaries. Objects have boundaries. It has properties. Atma doesn't have. Atma is same in all objects. That's why it is all pervasive, sarvavyapi. As existence, Sat. Sat has no qualities. It is only pure existence. So it is not an intellectual concept. It is not an emotional experience that comes and goes. It is not something that is perceptible to the senses, nor it is there in the sense objects. No amount of external enjoyment of sense pleasures will ever give us this. Because there are people who speak about this. And so many people get carried away also. So they feel that, when we enjoy sense objects, we forget ourselves. So now that is the state of bliss. How many wrong notions are there? Some people think you can get this state by drugs. Altered state of consciousness. Of course, drugs will lead to altered state of consciousness, but what is that consciousness? It is mind what they are talking about, not the Atma. And just because one feels some euphoria, one feels some, kick, or one feels some kind of a high, doesn't mean it is the consciousness. Sometime back, people used to think like that. Even today, some people think, why are you struggling so much to meditate? And, just take some drugs, take some LSD, take some cocaine, this, that, and get into that. It is not a drug-induced state. Nor is it obtained through any other form of sense enjoyment. A human being wants a license to enjoy the world in the name of spirituality. Osho went around saying Sambhog se Samadhi. Sambhog and Samadhi are complete opposite. So it will not work. So when he says no sense, the flash of lightning, so thunder cannot illuminate, it means this, the sense objects don't have that capability only. How will engaging in sense objects make me realize the self? It is exactly opposite. It will bind me more. So all spiritual traditions which speak about realizing the truth will always say live in sense control. Will never say that do what you want, eat what you want, enjoy what you want. We are liberal people, we are free-minded. Consciousness doesn't depend on any of this. Of course, consciousness doesn't depend on any of this, but my attachment to the body, to the mind, to the senses makes me bound to the world. Till I'm bound to the world, how will I turn the attention within? I can't. So it is not an intellectual concept, it is not an emotional experience, it is not perceptible to the senses, nor is it experienceable through any amount of sense enjoyments. Nor can it be described. Fire is speech, I said. It cannot be explained through any amount of words. But so much we are going on reading mantras and bhashya and commentary on that and all that. See, those words are only to direct the mind. To direct the attention of the mind, the words are used. Finally, words have to be dropped. By how much can I use the word? How much can we use some finite description? It will never justify. It can never justify however great the expressions may be. Certain types of expressions are useful to turn the attention of the mind. After that, those words have to be dropped. The meaning of the word also has to be dropped. and what it is indicating, that has to be experienced. Like if we say that Ram, come here. Now whoever is Ram in the audience will come. No, the person, nobody is going to sit and that person Ram is going to think that I am being called. The person has dropped the word Ram, dropped the meaning of the word Ram. Ram means who revels in the bliss, who is in the hearts of all. So the person is not going to say that some Ram is called. No. Person is not going to say that one who is in the hearts of all is being called. No. The person is going to reject the word, reject the meaning of the word, and come to that what the word indicates. The word indicates me. So the person will say, I am being called, so the person will go. Same way, words are to be used to reject what I am not. And finally, the word also gets away. And one realizes what is pointed by the word, that it is that state. So this is the subjective meaning. Now, why is this mantra used in the Aarti? Because in the altar, in traditional temples, if you see, the altar is dark. And only when camphor is lit there can we have darshan of the Lord. Same way our heart as though is dark right now because of ignorance. Though the Lord is self-illumining, there is ignorance in the heart, there are vasanas which are covering. So it is dark inside as though. Like the sun is self-illumining, but the clouds cover it. So it looks gloomy, it looks dark. In the same way, the self is there, which is our true nature, but it is covered by the ignorance and layers of asana. So right now we are not experiencing. So how to experience then? The fire, the light which we show there, now that fire is actually the only way to see the Lord. In the sanctum, fire is the only way to see the Lord. Same way, the only way to realize the absolute truth is to know it as the subject. Then it illumines itself. Meaning it reveals itself. If I know it as the ultimate observer, the ultimate subject, that it is Sachidanand, it is beyond body, mind, intellect, and that is me, and I go away from all this attachment to sense pleasures, attachment to perceptibility, attachment to some emotional experience, attachment to some intellectual concept. If I drop all these, surrender the ego, then what I realize, Aham Brahmasmi. That will be the intuitive experience. So one is, from knowledge standpoint, this shloka means that the self can be experienced only as the absolute truth which transcends subject and object duality. From bhakti standpoint, it means, who am I to do anything? Oh Lord, it is you who are empowering me. I am only a dull equipment. It is by your grace everything happens. So let me not take up any ego. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. It is your doing. You are the karta, you are the bhokta. I am not anybody. I am a zero. That is the bhakti standpoint. So whichever standpoint, one will invoke surrender, humility, devotion, bhakti. Other will invoke contemplation, dropping all attachments, realization of the Supreme. The ultimate experience through both these paths is the same. But depending on my temperament, I can choose whichever path I want. So now that is where the second chapter, second Valli ends. And we will take up the last Valli, the third Valli of second chapter in our next class. Anything to ask, share in today's class?
Hari Om Swamiji, Nirja here.
Haji.
Just a little earlier, you were talking about the ultimate observer.
Yeah.
And that the self is the ultimate observer.
Yeah.
So, So you were saying that the ultimate observer observes the observer.
Yes.
So who's the observer over here then?
The observer here is the ego. So the
Okay.
ego, the individual, is observing the world outside. So the observed is the world outside, including the sense perceptions and emotions, which the ego observes, which ego goes through actually. By observes, we mean the ego goes through all that. That is observed by whom? The self, as the Sakshi.
Right. So even in contemplation, Swamiji, sometimes one realizes that when you're trying to observe your own thoughts, so then you feel that there's another entity that is actually observing that also.
Yeah, so that is the ultimate observer, correct.
Okay.
And that never becomes observed. That is an important point to understand, because otherwise one thinks ki if there is one entity which is observing the ego, which observes the world, who is observing this entity then? Then it goes into infinite regress. There is only one ultimate observer. That never becomes observed.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.